For this next section, we'll be talking about opportunities for collaboration, heat resilience at the federal, state, and local levels. And this will be facilitated by Grace Wickerson, Senior Manager, Climate and Health with the Federation of American Scientists, along with Eugene Livar, the Chief Heat Officer for the state of Arizona, and Fatima Luna, the Chief Resilience Officer from the city of Tucson. So Grace, we'll turn it over to you.
Thanks all so much for the invitation. I'm happy to be here with all of you. You're going to have a great panel today. I'll be giving us a rundown of what is going on federally. Often every day is a new mystery and new things to learn about what is going on federally. But I think what the locus will be much more interesting for us to explore is the real momentum that we see building at the state and local level all over the country to address the issue of extreme heat. I'll share a bit about what we've been doing at that level, but we have some wonderful experts that are your peers over in Arizona who will have a lot to share about the work that they're doing to really advance this issue and collaborate in really meaningful ways across the different levels of government and across partners in the Arizona area. So let me share my screen. So I am at the Federation of American Scientists. We're a DC-based policy think tank working on all areas of science and technology policy. We have been around for 80 years, working to ensure that science is used responsibly by government and that science is also responsive to what government is needing in terms of how to move these various important policy issues that we're facing right now forward. So I run our climate and health policy program. We are formally been instituted for about a year, but have been doing this work, the Climate and Health Nexus, for the last 4 years. The two focuses areas of our work are the climate and environmental drivers of health and climate resilient health systems. We know that climate change, as we've heard just about all of today, is a key driver of people's health. And so we have been examining how extreme weather, environmental conditions affect the short core factors that shape health and the ways that policy needs to be responsive to that as a real whole of government approach. In the climate resilient health systems work, we also know that healthcare is the key response agency to the impacts of climate change. And there's a key need to help those health systems prepare for these emerging threats and work more collaboratively across all the areas and partners of the health system to really ensure good health for all in a changing climate. So extreme heat is, I would say, the majority of the work that we do at the Federation of American Scientists in our climate and health program. And we're working with governments at all levels to ensure that we have responsive evidence-based policy. So we've done a series of research on assessing the costs of extreme heat. So grateful that's been shared about through Jason's past presentation, and Jason is a close friend and collaborator, to really just help policymakers understand that there's a lot of uninsured losses that we're seeing because of extreme heat, and those costs need to have responsive policy solutions. We are working often closely with state and local government officials all over the country, convening them to think about shared regional strategies for how we address the issue of extreme heat. We also are a policy shop, so a lot of our work is also about training practitioners, scientists, experts to design effective policy in the context in which they work. So we're often helping be a steward to making sure that the best evidence is translated into policy. And final things I'll just share, and kind of just an overall highlight of our work. We're often helping to map the policy progress on heat. We've mapped the heat plans and resilience plans all over the country and their heat-related actions. In a couple of months, we'll be pursuing a policy scan of the whole country, looking at kind of legislative, executive orders, and other efforts that state and local governments are doing to protect populations from extreme heat. And last thing is our climate and environment team looks at this issue from a broad lens, and so we also have a very dedicated wildfire program. We have some programs on grid and grid resilience. So we've looked even at all those different intersecting hazards and how we can best advise, because extreme heat does not strike communities alone. It comes in waves, and it comes with a range of other hazards, and helping us to understand holistically how we address this risk is incredibly important. So I'm going to give the quickest overview of where is the federal government on extreme heat. And if you're interested in learning more, I've published a few pieces that summarize, I think, pretty closely what's going on. And there's some updates, but it's largely, where things are standing. So prior to this current administration, there was a lot of momentum at the federal level on extreme heat. So we were seeing the formation of an interagency working group on extreme heat that included close to 30 federal agencies, all of whom were motivated to think about the ways that they could collaborate and the ways that they could also work internally to advance heat-related priorities. This was the culmination of their work with the National Heat Strategy, which helped to facilitate and guide the work forward on extreme heat. And we were in close partnership with many of these federal agencies, bringing the partners and experts to the table, as well as bringing the policy recommendations to bear. This is just, again, a quick snapshot of the National Heat Strategy, which was taken down, I think, as of April of 2025, but really was focused on how to kind of formalize heat governance at the federal level, looking at societal level risk, improve perceptions of heat, looking at how to fund the work needed to help develop solutions, working on how to facilitate better partnerships, and well as actually get the foundational support. I think at this time, this heat work that's run out of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration through NIAS is not authorized. So it's very much at risk of being dismantled, because there's no authority in any of these agencies to actually address the issue of extreme heat. So that, I think, was largely where we were. But here is where we are. I would say we are in a moment of flux. It's been a big year for most climate-related issues, and extreme heat is no exception. And these are those two pieces that I mentioned, which you can find on the FAS website that do that deeper dive into the state of play. But I would say that largely these are the kind of 5 main things that we have observed through our work, and again, are still standing. There's been a total loss of leadership at the federal level. Career staff who've been working on these issues for decades have departed, really leaving a vacuum for whoever could take this on, say there's a more desire to do this work, or even a positive transition towards doing climate and health again at the federal level. You've essentially lost all of your core people who knew the ins and outs of federal government. That's complemented with staff losses all across the federal family. And that comes with scientists as well that were core to the development of things like, even the work rest standards that were mentioned in the previous presentation. Many of those scientists have been departed from government. There's a lot of losses to our data, forecasts and information availability, as well as just risks. Given desires to privatize things like the Weather Service, we're really just in a moment of flux about what we actually can see and receive from federal sources. Funding and programs have also received cuts or rollbacks. We've seen a couple of bright spots here. The BRIC program, for example, had been put on pause, but thankfully some court action has moved it back into play. So when there's funding that was unlocked that is going to communities. But I think the challenge is a lot of the work that was included on extreme heat has been largely removed from future funding opportunities, kind of putting heat back into its limbo of resourcing. And then generally, while there's an acknowledgement that this is there's acknowledgement this is an issue, the federal government is concerned about even things like the FIFA World Cup this summer, and knowing that heat will be a major risk. There's really no strong commitment, willingness to do something about it. And the ball has been totally kicked, I think, to the state and local level, as is with other extreme weather-related hazards. So I'll kind of close, and this will be the good transition point to our wonderful speakers, is where do we go from here? And what we have been thinking about at the Federation of American Scientists in general, and not just on climate and health, is that we need to be thinking more thoughtfully about how we move towards kind of a more polycentric approach to policy change. Noting that, as a DC-based organization, it can sometimes feel like everything in the Beltway is so consequential, but then you forget there's millions of people who do not live here, who are all working every single day to make progress, develop innovative solutions, and meet the needs of constituents. And all of that innovation we should be looking out to and learning from and making sure that we're supporting, because we need an approach right now with many flowers to bloom for us to actually find the ways forward for extreme heat resilience. So we actually are excited that more states are moving forward with heat action plans, response plans, resilience plans, and policies. Where we work regularly with a group of state leaders, including Dr. Livar, to talk about the work on heat planning and progress. We see also more and more local governments taking action on extreme heat. The Sun Belt region, including New Mexico, it's just an expansion of the work on heat, and it's also growing upwards towards more cold weather states that have not yet, really dealt with the extreme heat that's in New Mexico, but are understanding it's coming for them. And then we see an increasing public and private sector alarm. So that's, I think, especially important. This is no longer something that they can ignore. And I think that's very important for building power in coalition. So we've been thinking over the past year, since the dismantling of the federal work, is how do we kind of work to steward all of this interest and progress towards shared strategies. So that is our state and local heat policy agenda, of which I'm moving myself, of which I'm really excited to say that Healthy Climate New Mexico will be a partner on, where we are focused on 3 core pillars that we believe are the ways that we can communicate the issue of extreme heat and kind of cover a broad range of sectors by which people are both most exposed to extreme heat and the sectors where we can be really investing thoughtfully and creatively in resilient solutions. So our policies are focusing on our homes, we're focusing on our workplaces, our schools, childcare facilities, and ways to reduce the impacts of heat in all of those sites where we spend so much of our time. And we're really thinking about safe communities. What does a community that is prepared for extreme heat look like? How does it respond when heat waves strike? And how is it also dealing with the chronic effects of heat, not just in our summer seasons, but year round, and what those risks are manifesting as, and how do we actually address them in a thoughtful and substantial way. So that QR code on the slide will take you to the heat policy agenda. We are currently working to build support from organizations all over the country and also working at the national level. And I'd be excited to chat more if folks are interested. Otherwise, you can connect with me here at gwickerson@fas.org. And I'm excited to move us now into our panel. So we'll first start with Dr. Eugene Livar, who is coming from Arizona as Arizona's first chief heat officer. He was appointed to this role in 2024, and he oversees the implementation of the Extreme Heat Preparedness Plan. He is an incredible advocate for these issues. I've greatly enjoyed getting to work with him since he has been in this role and see the progress that he's made in really transforming the way that the state government is working on heat. So over to you, Eugene.
Thank you, Grace. I appreciate that. And I think I'm going to have to utilize your federal flux line. I really do love that. That is a good way to put it without rubbing anybody the wrong way. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides real quick. Let me bring those up. Hopefully, let's see here. Hopefully everybody can see that. Are they showing?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me at this great summit. I wanted to cover our state's perspective on how we are bridging heat resilience across our state. Our goal is simple but ambitious to align data, strategy, and coordinated actions across all 15 Arizona counties to protect our communities from extreme heat. Just to set the stage a little bit, we've heard a little bit about temperatures and what's been experienced. In 2025, Phoenix endured 122 days of triple digit heat, greater than 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and hit an all time monthly high of 118 degrees Fahrenheit on August 7th, breaking a multi year tie of 117 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just brutal for the communities and what they're experiencing. And the severity was not limited to just the valley. Six Arizona counties, including Coconino, Graham, Mojave, Pinal, Pima, and Yavapai, logged their absolute warmest years on record. So just like you heard about Albuquerque in March of this year, Arizona also experienced a historic heat wave. An all-time March high of 105 degrees was reached on 3 consecutive days during that month. And so I think it's just really letting us know that heat awareness, education, and prevention is pretty much becoming 12 months out of the year for a lot of our states. And this heat actually triggered a National Weather Service to issue its earliest extreme heat warning on record for Phoenix. And so you can definitely tell that we are dealing in some dire times and definitely need some action as we move forward. Our work is guided by the 2024 Extreme Heat Preparedness Plan that Grace mentioned, and this was put forward by our governor. It's not just a static document; it's an iterative process that we utilize to kind of guide our steps that we're doing within Arizona. Each year, we update our strategies based on lessons learned and ensure that we're meeting four overarching goals: really driving relief, reducing illnesses and deaths, preparing for the future, and fostering innovation. Heat is not just a health issue, it's an infrastructure, economic, and emergency management issue. I think you've seen some of those themes going on during the conversations that we've had during the 2 day summit. In Arizona, we've moved beyond just siloed responses and by institutionalized monthly meetings among state agencies. This unified approach allows us to coordinate everything from federal advocacy to practical household and state level support, such as energy rebates and infrastructure. We're working together to ensure Arizona's response is as comprehensive as the challenge itself that we're meeting. The data tells a sobering story in Arizona. Heat risk is shaped by temperature, but also by social and economic factors. We see the highest case numbers in populous counties, but the highest rates per population are often in rural and western counties. Arizona is glad to see improvements in 2025 with preliminary numbers showing 667 heat-related deaths. This is a nearly 40% decrease from the previous year. And we had just at 4,800 heat-related illnesses, which is a 10% decrease from what we saw in 2024. This is definitely a testament to the hard ongoing work happening across Arizona at all levels, from our municipalities, our towns, our counties, states, coming together and really having a coordinated effort and action in Arizona. At the state level, our role is to turn science into action. I think one of my mentors, what is the public health action you're going to do off of anything that comes up is something that I ask myself every single day in this job and all the other positions that I've held before this. We've improved our surveillance to provide near real-time views of health trends by upgrading our heat-related illness dashboard to an every other day schedule during the week. So we're now able to provide our community members and partners heat-related illness data every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to help with real-time decisions that they may need to make during heat season. This syndromic data now covers 93% of the state's emergency departments, which is absolutely amazing and a big testament to the partnership that we have within our agency with other programs and areas to get to that point. We are now ranking heat deaths among the state's top health-related causes of mortality, ranking as high as 8th in some counties to objectively measure the threat. And those are some new tools and information that we're making available to our public health partners and others to help them strategize how they're going to be dealing with heat moving forward. In 2025, I wanted to mention that we launched heat.az.gov. This is a centralized hub that empowers Arizonans by connecting them to trusted information that is fact-based. From tracking local cooling centers to finding utility assistance through programs like LIHEAP and our new Power AZ initiative that we have in Arizona. But it's also about ensuring the right information reaches the right people at the right time so that people can make informed decisions as they move forward. We've had some new features such as the check your heat risk widget that we added to it that is really nice. So people can put in their address or their zip code and see exactly what is their heat risk for the 7 days that are coming up, and it gives them recommendations on how to protect themselves. So that's a nice thing that we've added moving forward this year. We're also thinking a little bit outside the box, no pun intended, for solutions in our state. Our two solar-powered Capitol Mall cooltainers saw a 60% increase in utilization this year. We had over 2 sites that are located near our governor's tower, nearly 12,000 visits during the 2025 heat season, which is absolutely amazing. They've become a great tool for immediate heat mitigation by some of our most vulnerable that we have within Phoenix. We have 16 other units deployed across the state that we distributed in 2024 that actually add to our state's heat relief sites to help reduce some of the burden on our local communities and provide relief to those that are truly in need. And it's been something that has been really successful for us, and we're really glad that we were able to do that, and are looking at possibilities of how to expand it in the future. We cannot do this alone. That is the truest statement I will say today. Our strategy relies on deep collaboration across the state. First, we've partnered with the University of Arizona to educate healthcare providers on how specific medications can impact heat tolerance. We're also coordinating alongside with the American Red Cross to unify our state planning and outreach efforts to help ensure our planning is inclusive of all of our community's lived experiences. We hold listening sessions with our tribal, rural, and disability communities. Our partners also expressed the need for a centralized hub for communication. To meet this need that was expressed, we launched Civic Roundtable, which is an easy to use kind of social media like platform similar to like Facebook and others for real-time information sharing and coordination among our heat partners in our state. Finally, we maintain momentum through year-round state heat briefing calls. These occur twice monthly during the heat season and once monthly during the off-season to make sure that all of our partners can stay connected if they want to do so, and also have a place to lean on that brain trust in case they have any questions or needs, and also let us know what's happening within their areas, their communities, and their efforts so that the state can have a pulse of what's happening within our communities. Looking towards 2026, we're focused on integration. We're preparing updated guidance for schools and deeper data visualizations for mortality. Our goal is to capitalize on shared expertise to drive down the numbers of heat-related illnesses and deaths across the state, which is a huge priority for us. And just in closing, I'd like to say that every level of government and every community partner plays a complementary role in our resilience. It's very important for us to work together. As I stated before, no one person, entity, or party can do it all. We have to learn how to work with each other, break down those silos, and stay connected. And that's a really big priority for us in Arizona. Also, making sure that we have a presence, we're transparent, and have a listening ear so that we can hear from communities and others about what's going on and what those needs are, and seeing that if not us, who else may be able to step up to the table to help them with those items. But with that, I'll pass it back to Grace, and thank you so much for the time to present today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Eugene. So much amazing work. And really just, again, building this institutional foundation so that everyone else can thrive, I think is such a key role for state government. And I think you're really demonstrating what it means to really bring that capacity to bear. And so we'll move on to our next presenter, also coming to us from Arizona, Fatima Luna, who is the Chief Resilience Officer for the city of Tucson, and who has really driven some incredible work in Tucson, helping to draft their first extreme heat action plan that includes a range of actions to really ready the city both against some of that, really acute heat, but also that chronic risk that I laid out. So, and another person I'm so grateful to have been working with over the last couple of years, and have just really admired all of her great work. So, without further ado, over to you, Fatima.
Thank you, Grace, and good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here and learn from you all. I was taking notes in the previous presentations, and I'm just really impressed with all the work that you're all doing. I'm going to share my deck. Let's see if I can figure this out. I think this one's it. Screen 2. Can't you see it? All right, and I'm gonna try to put it in presentation mode. I'll just do it here. Can you see it? Perfect. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, so again, my name is Fatima Luna. I have been in this role as Chief Resilience Officer for a little over 2 years, and my role is to implement the City of Tucson's Climate Action Plan, which includes 5 different categories, one of which is community resilience, where we have a lot of our heat efforts. And as part of that efforts, as Grace indicated, we created a strategy to do this work. So Tucson is one of the fastest warming cities in the nation, and unfortunately, we continue to break heat records. We had our earliest ever 100-degree day in March 19 this year, breaking our previous record on April 11 of last year. And unfortunately, this has been the pattern, not just in Tucson, but really like across our communities of our summers starting earlier and lasting longer. And so it's not just about temperature, it's about like heat safety, it's about affordability, it's about overall quality of life for Tucsonans. And we also know that not everybody feels the heat equally. Low income and communities of color are hit first and worst. And this is, as you all know, due to like disproportionate investments and historic discriminatory practices, and yes, systemic disinvestments in some of these communities. So low income and communities of color, are hit first and worst. And so when we think about our strategy for building heat resilience, it's also a strategy on equity and prioritizing the communities that need these resources the most. And so to advance this work, the city of Tucson adopted a heat action roadmap. I do want to highlight how important it was for the state to provide leadership on this level, because the governor in 2024 declared a heat emergency that triggered all these effects at the local government, one of which was for us and other community organizations and jurisdictions to develop their action plans for heat. And so for our plan, we're focusing on 3 main goals that actually protect people and cool homes as well as community spaces. And our approach is two-pronged. So we focus on heat mitigation and heat management. And so for heat mitigation, we are looking at strategies that can help us cool our city today and over time. Over time, by doing things like, planting trees, looking at our buildings and how they're designed, complete streets, transitioning our fleet to fully decarbonize. Right now, the city of Tucson has 10 electric buses, 10 more on the way, 5 paratransit, all electric. And we also got a grant to fully decarbonize our fleet, so no more diesel buses. We're also, doing some other things. So these are the actions that would help us reduce like heat waste in the city and cool the city over time. And so in terms of heat management, we're looking at strategies that help us protect people from the heat that we're already experiencing. So that means, providing like the cooling infrastructure, so like cooling centers, intensive outreach efforts, also looking at like the housing first model. How can we support some of our unhoused neighbors and get them into the pipeline of housing, looking at worker protection. And so for heat mitigation, some of the things that we're doing. So we're focusing on greening our city, not just by planting trees to Mayor Romero's 2 million trees initiative, but also the Storm to Shade program, where if you know our monsoons in our region, when it rains, it pours, and so we do have a big influx of water in our streets, and so the Storm to Shade program allows to divert that water from the street into basins that help with growing trees and other natural areas for wildlife, but also helps with our greening strategy across the city. Again, I mentioned about the electric buses. We have a complete streets policy. We are working with other cities and collaboration project to create a resilient Southwest building code. So like a code that is very focused on our region and the climate hazards that we as a community have. And so how can we look at like new buildings with that lens and make sure that our new buildings have these are prepared to withstand what we're seeing and what's going to continue to happen. At the city, we also have a solar empowerment program where we help support low-income communities to get solar panels in their homes. And so that's with the idea of not only reducing their energy use, but also reducing the amount of energy that comes from like fossil fuels. So that's all part of the like reducing heat within the city. And we're also focusing on strategies to protect people for the heat that's already here. We do a lot of engagement, a lot of outreach. We partner with the Red Cross. And in fact, we have to pivot our strategy for engaging preparedness for the heat season this year. So we started knocking on doors in March, really adjusting to like the changing temperatures. And so our strategy focuses on like pre, during, and post heat season. So for the pre-season, we do a lot of heat awareness. So we knock on hundreds of doors with our partners at the Red Cross, the county, and other groups. So we ask community members to check on their neighbors. We let them know like these resources are available to you. These are the cooling centers that are closest to you. So it's a very data informed strategy. We use 911 heat related calls. We use heat costs and heat related deaths data to select the neighborhoods where we're going to be canvassing. And oftentimes this is neighborhoods with large mobile home or manufactured homes across the region. And so this is part of our awareness strategy. We also this year implemented, there's not a picture here, but implemented Loteria Nights. So here, awareness Loteria Nights, where it's a nice way to learn about heat preparedness in a fun way. There's prizes, and it also helps with that social cohesion piece that it's needed. I always like to repeat this because I think it's very powerful, and it's something that the Red Cross has shared with us, that the number one indicator of how fast a community recovers from a climate hazard is how well they know their neighbors. And so social cohesion is a huge piece of that preparedness piece. And so playing loteria nights in the common area of mobile home parks really like helps people get to know your neighbors. And these are the resources that are available to you. So that's a great way of engaging folks. We also distribute hundreds of heat relief kits with supplies from the state. Again, just can highlight how much these partnerships mean to us, the state and the county, and then the city. We do it with hundreds of volunteers that help not only assemble the kits, but also distribute them to mostly our unhoused neighbors. I want to share a data point because Dr. Livar shared the state-wide heat cost reduction of deaths. But I'm very proud to say that in Tucson, in Pima County, in our region, heat cost deaths for those that are like heat is the primary cause of the death, and outdoor deaths reduced by 61%. I want to say that I'm an economist, so I know that you need to do a correlation analysis to make this claim, but I love to think that this is our collective efforts, all of our partners being on the ground throughout the heat season, distributing these heat relief kits, making sure that people have cold water with liquid IV, ice packs, cooling towels, had an impact. I don't know that I can claim like this is the causation correlation kind of a thing, but we were on the ground. This is the most coordinated we have ever been, and we are seeing the results on the ground. Our heat related deaths also reduced by a smaller percentage, 14%. And that's more like, that for me, that tells me we need to work on things like making sure that people are have cool homes or have weatherized homes and have, things in the built environment that help them stay cool in their places, as well as protection policies. The city also adopted a heat protection ordinance for workers, so city employees and our contractors. We saw a 75% reduction in reported heat-related deaths. I think it when it first increased because of the awareness, there was a huge amount of training that took place. Now every single city department and every contractor and their subcontractors are required to have heat safety plans. And so we've seen a positive impact on not just like the training, but also making it a policy. And again, just want to highlight our cooling center visitation significantly increased this summer, especially with our unhoused community members, thanks to the state's cooltainers. The state's cooltainers were the most effective way of providing a safe space, a dignified space for unhoused neighbors to not only rest and have respite, but also provide wraparound services like, helping them connect them to resources. Again, going back to that Housing First initiative. And I cannot stress how successful that program was. And again, using data-informed decisions to place them where they need it the most. So that was great for us. And then the last thing that I would say, I think this is a theme across the summit, is that that impact significantly increases when you work across not only jurisdictions at all levels, but also across sectors. The American Red Cross, community groups, academia, even the private sector have also been great partners in this work. I just want to emphasize that when we have limited resources, and we all are experiencing budget cuts, we're all experiencing grant terminations. When you pool your resources, not only are you able to provide the same quality of resources and services or higher, but then you get to establish like partnerships that will last beyond any one administration. So I just want to emphasize that and say that I'm very grateful to be working across sectors and expand the work that we do thanks to those partnerships. Thank you. And I'll see if I can stop sharing. Oh, yes. And lastly, like this is my contact info. happy to connect with all of you. And I'll be emailing some of you too for your amazing work that you're doing. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for really walking through all of that great work and really showing how heat's a very complicated issue to solve and work on. You've got mitigation, adaptation, you have to engage public health, social services, you have to engage built environment professionals, the energy system. Like, it's truly an all hands on deck endeavor. And appreciate the ways that you really share that from the local perspective. So I have a couple of pre-prepared questions, and then I know there's a very eager audience who wants to learn from you as well. So for that audience, we'll, in about 20 minutes, we'll be able to move to some open dialogue. So I recommend that you put those questions that you have in the chat, and I will do my best to keep track of them. It's a very active chat. So please be working on that, as we'll hear from Fatima and Eugene and some more details. So one question that we talked about in the prep for this was, and you built on that at the end of your presentation, a very difficult time right now for state and local governments. There's threats coming on all sides, rising affordability challenges, federal funding cuts. And so it can, heat, while being a very important issue, is on a plate of many other issues. So I would love to hear about some of the creative ways that you're keeping this work going in a more resource constrained environment, and what, leveraging those partnerships that you both mentioned, how do they help you to expand your impact?
Fatima, if it's okay, I can start and
Okay.
go from
Yes.
there. Just thinking a little bit, I think Fatima and I represent two sides of the same coin, right? Fatima, as you saw from her presentation, the work that she showed, just amazing, direct contact, community oriented, boots on the ground work happening within the city of Tucson. Looking at my role at the state level a little bit is just to ensure that those local successes are supported if that need is there, and don't remain isolated. We want to share these and our best practices with others across the state. One of the postures we took when we first started the coordinated effort in 2024 was to ensure that we had a holistic view of the state. We had some great work happening for over 2 decades in Arizona. A lot of it centered within the urban areas of our state. Some great work going on, but we also wanted to make sure that those individuals weren't lost and forgotten. So those in our tribal communities, those in our rural areas, those that were outside where a lot of pointed efforts were happening, or still had a voice and had an ability to get support, was really important to us. And so we listened to community needs and determined whether there's other partners or we can help and respond when items are voiced or needs are identified. I think, being flexible in the state that we have, I think you mentioned some of this, Grace. We've had some examples of kind of the work that we've done. One that we mentioned, which is the cooltainers, which was really taking lemons and making lemonade. Those were shipping containers that were used for a border wall in Arizona that were repurposed to help with heat mitigation in our state. And we were able to do that through using some ARPA funds that were made available from the federal government, which was really great because that was some of the most flexible funding we've ever received. And we often are really pigeonholed by the parameters in the way funding can be utilized. And I would use that as an example moving forward of what we need more of so that governments and communities can decide how to best use federal funding to meet their needs. Those were really retrofitted shipping containers, and they're completely off the grid. All they need is a grounding rod and a site to be able to go to. They have solar powered air conditioning on them. They're able to cool down individuals. People can rest, grab some water or a snack, charge their phones, and get connected to services. Our dream was that they turn into resiliency hubs, which is what they've done in Tucson. And so that's what we really like to see, because anytime you have an opportunity to have contact with an individual who needs these services, you should go ahead and make that contact count. Because, every visit that we have, and when I look at our 12,000 visits that we had within the Capitol Mall, those are 12,000 heat-related illnesses and deaths that were prevented at that point in time. And that's kind of the perspective we need to have, where every person counts. Every person is you're taking advantage of every contact you have with that individual. I think we try to be really flexible too with the way that we support our different constituents with cooling supplies. We worked with our a sister state agency with the Arizona Lottery and with our opioid program, which had some funding that they could utilize to expand our efforts and provide items such as shoes, cooling towels, and other heating supplies to the community. And we usually bring those in about mid-heat season when individuals have already started to tap and utilize the supplies that they have, and then to help augment them to take them during that stretch of the second half of heat season. We support communication platforms like Civic Roundtable, and making sure that people have a way to connect and are able to communicate as we go forward. And I think that is really important, especially when you have an expanded network across jurisdictional partners from, for us in Arizona, is our other state agencies, our universities, tribal, county, and local governments, our community and faith-based organizations, nonprofit organization, federal partners, and private industry that we hope to integrate even more as we move forward. Because I think that public and private partnership is going to be key, especially now that we're seeing cuts and funding cliffs coming within our communities. But that's just me.
Yeah, I can share one of the projects that I'm really excited about. We have been working on these for over a year. And so for over a year, let me start from the beginning. So our local utility has been working with the city for a number of years in different things like EV infrastructure, charging infrastructure, and things like that. As any other utility, they require a franchise agreement to use the city's right of way to, just to provide their services. Their franchise is actually expiring this year. And there was a proposition like a couple years ago to renew. The community didn't like it, and so it didn't pass. And the community asked our mayor and council to go back to the drawing board and follow an example that the city of San Diego did, where they did their franchise agreement and a parallel agreement that had climate provisions. And so funding to do climate related projects. And so our council directed us to conduct engagement with the community and ask them what they would like to see in this potential energy collaboration agreement between the city and the utility. And so last year we hosted like 7 town halls, where essentially we asked community, what are your energy priorities? What are specific programs that you would like to see? And like also ask them to rank them. And that feedback became the framework of the energy collaboration agreement draft that this year we had community members review. They provided additional comment. So it's been over a year in the works and back and forth negotiations with the utility. And I'm very excited to say that our council actually adopted the energy collaboration agreement early this month. Still April, yes, early this month. And it provides $2 million per year of TEP or utilities funds that cannot be recovered through ratepayers. They committed to this. And a 2% annual escalator for 25 years. That is about $64 million in total, or $2 million plus the escalator a year. And the projects that it can support are the things that the community asks for. So things that are no surprise to anybody. Like they wanted like things for heat safety, like weatherization in their homes, retrofits, solar panels, energy battery storage systems in their homes, resilient hubs, cooling centers, resilient infrastructure. And so I'm very excited that this passed by our council. It is tied to the franchise agreement. Our community was concerned that our local utility or TEP could walk away after the franchise is approved. And so they wanted to tie the two together. So although the ECA was passed, it would be coming into effect if the November election of the franchise passes. And so that November election is just like right away. And so if it passes in November, then the ECA gets activated and we immediately get like those $2 million per year that would go directly into people's homes. Never before we had the opportunity to have a secure source of funding, new dollars for our community that cannot be recovered through ratepayers for weatherization projects to increase affordability. There's like bill assistance programs. There's weatherization, solar panels, energy battery storage systems. And so I'm super excited because it was a long year of negotiations back and forth. It didn't start it here. It started with like $500,000 of competitive funds across the region that we didn't have a say on like what projects. And so very excited if it passes in November. Again, it's up to the community to decide. It would go directly into people's homes. It would have community oversight through our Commission on Climate, Energy, and Sustainability. And then we would have, I'm actually working on creating an implementation plan on how to prioritize those funds. So looking at both what are the biggest impacts for both reducing greenhouse gas emissions and affordability, which are the things that our community cares about the most at this time. And so very excited. Hopefully, our community will have access to those funds, and they'll have a say in November.
Thank you all so much for sharing those examples. And this is the sense I have gotten, but as I've connected with folks throughout Arizona, like there's this like heat is such a shared mission. Like there's a good understanding that this is an issue that we have to solve. And I think the ways in which that brings all the partners together to, understand how they can be helpful and how they can contribute doesn't mean that, everyone will agree on what to do, but I think that consensus that this is something that we need to be working on, I think is so powerful, and really hope that that can be something that New Mexico is building towards over the next couple of years. Another question I have for you both, given that we are speaking to an audience of health professionals and their partners, how can health professionals be effective collaborators with state and local governments? And what did you wish they knew about the work you do so they can be those effective partners?
I can start. We work very closely with the Pima County Health Department. They have a division on like heat, preparedness, and mitigation. And they have been our biggest supporters along with the Arizona Department of Health Services. They not only provide like training for our cooling centers on like, how to, like what to do, like how to identify like heat exhaustion and all the signs of like heat stress. And so they are, they have been the biggest partners, and we hold recurring meetings where we constantly learn from each other. I do think that there is a bigger sense of credibility when you talk about like the impacts of heat on the human body when it comes from the health department. And so that's been a huge advantage for us to use the resources that both the state and the county are putting together, because it's not just us. I'm an economist. What do I know about the human body, right? And so it's really great to have those partners, and they come out and show up to the events, even like the students from the medical school at the U of A come and support the heat awareness and heat walks across the community. So I would say the constant communication that we have has been key, and I would love to keep that going.
I think just to complement that a little bit, I have a clinical background. My wife is a nurse, and I come from a really big nursing family. So when I think about healthcare providers and healthcare staff out there, I wish and I hope that they know that we need healthcare professionals to help us bridge the gap between climate science and
Mhm.
clinical reality, and to improve heat education and help
Mhm.
distribute heat education, because they're trusted pillars within the community. We've done outreach to our Arizona healthcare professionals through partnerships with our sister state agency, Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, which handles our state's Medicare plans and providers. We've worked with them to ensure that we're distributing resources, information. They've also are working on updating their contracts. So heat mitigation is part of the plan activities and reportables that are going to be coming from those health plans that they support, which is really great. That's a movement that we hadn't seen before, is taking that and putting that into those contracts. Um, we've also given presentations and partnerships with the Arizona Burn Center, the Joint Commission, the Arizona Healthcare Association, the American Lung Association, the Arizona Coalition of Healthcare Emergency Responders in our state, amongst others, to help make sure that they're aware of where we stand in Arizona, what our plans are, making sure everybody knows how to recognize, as Fatima said, heat-related illness, exhaustion, and stroke that we heard today, and they know what to do and how to distribute that information, where to go in case they need help or more resources. We also prioritize our healthcare professional support through resources. We have a heat and medication impact handout that is from a multi-organizational heat and med task force partnership that we have, that's facilitated through the University of Arizona. We have a great relationship with them. And if you have any needs in New Mexico, let me know. I can make a connection for you, because they're always looking on how to expand and work with healthcare providers and get them what they need. Something really innovative that came out of that was a partnership with the Arizona Poison Control and Drug Information Center in our state. Uh, Anybody can call them, including healthcare providers, to get information on their medications and possible heat impacts. They'll guide you through that process. They'll guide you with that information. You can be a healthcare provider or a member of the general public, and they'll get to speak to a pharmacist through that, which is really great, because sometimes we just have a few questions, and a little bit of information can help us make smart decisions. And so things like that are really important as we go forward. Last year, we also partnered with AmeriCares. We heard them present today to distribute their climate resilience and for frontline clinic toolkit and resources out to our clinicians, to make sure that they have that and they're able to utilize those toolkits to be able to make themselves more resilient, whether it's a small, healthcare clinic in a rural community, or it's a large system that maybe just needs to bridge that gap a little bit and be able to be prepared for the heat. At a state level, I think, we hope healthcare professionals will help advocate for policies too and changes by leveraging their influence and subject matter expertise, because we need those advocates out there talking to our legislators and helping make a change and using their expertise to help us justify the needs and the change that we need to make within our communities.
Amazing. Thank you both for sharing those examples. Both, I think, the sides of the work. There's very much a practical nature of the partnership, and health professionals are so close to these problems, and can really be helping to advance the state of the care and response, which was showed earlier in today's wonderful presentations. And also the voice of the health professional is so critical for advancing policies that are protective against extreme heat. And that health message we've observed is really driving important conversations all over the country around this issue of extreme heat and other hazards that are a result of change. So I do have more. So I could ask endless questions to you all, and I also would love to respect some of the questions that we had in the chat. So I believe this question is for you, Eugene. But we had someone asking about the heat impact data, including data from federal sources like the Indian Health Services or Veterans Affairs. And they're interested to know how you may have formed those partnerships if that data is in use in Arizona.
Wonderful question. And I think those partnerships and collaborations are key. One of the priorities, as you heard me mention earlier, were our tribal communities. We work really closely with our state tribal liaison. One of the things that we do is have heat points of contact for every single tribal entity across our state that we identify each year and update a list to make sure they're incorporated and are able to take part and have input on any of our efforts that are going forward. And then they're also working on data use agreements across tribal communities to see how and when we can share data with our tribal partners. We want to respect their sovereignty and we want to make sure that we do things appropriately and with their permission as we go forward. And this is going to be a major step for us as we take some next steps. I think as we look forward, one of the things is we're going to be participating, or I'll be participating in a IHS Heat Preparedness Symposium in June. So we're looking for opportunities to do that type of outreach and make those connections within the 638s and IHS communities and make sure that they're incorporated and aware of what we're doing and can participate if they want to do so. And so looking at that and hopefully being able to garner some of that data because we do have some gaps, right, within our data as a state. And it'd be lovely to be able to fill those holes to help provide assistance if it's needed or help provide services as we go forward. But I think even if you have those gaps, you can still work collaboratively through outreach to work with tribal communities and making sure that we can do some. And we've had some great partnerships with different tribal entities across our state. We have them integrated into our briefings and calls. We answer and make sure that we're available to them if they have any questions or outreach. And so while we're trying to bridge some of those data bridges, we can do things in the background to make sure that those relationships are as strong as we can make them. I think the other piece was about federal data. Is that right, Grace? Is that the other component?
I think VA data, so
VA
veterans,
Yeah, so we do
yes.
work with our state agency for veteran services. And so we work with them really closely. They're part of our integrated state agency monthly meetings that we hold here within Arizona. We have 14 to 16 state agencies that meet once a month to go ahead and monitor our long-term recommendation progress that are identified within our plan and to also coordinate efforts around heat. And we have actually 3 representatives from that agency that regularly participate, and we see how we can support veteran services and if there's any data needs or gaps or other pieces that are there. And then we also provide them a little bit of a proxy of information as we collect veteran-based data at our Capital Mall containers so that we can pass that along to them so they can kind of get an indication of who, when, and why individuals who are veterans may be seeking services. And so it may not be perfect, but it's a starting point and we can build from it going forward.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I do see we have a hand raised. So Harold, would you like to the question in real time?
Sure. This is for Dr. Livar. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Your position in Arizona, was that established from the governor at the executive level, or is that in statute, the position? Just wondering for the sake of just trying to figure out how to get that done here in New Mexico. I think it'd be better to get it in a statute. We're just trying to understand how that was achieved in Arizona.
Sure. It was established at the executive level by the governor. So it is not in statute, but it was established through the Extreme Heat Preparedness Plan, along with a statewide heat relief coordinator position for our state to help, really coordinate these efforts as they go forward within Arizona. I will say Governor Hobbs has been extremely supportive of the work that we've done within Arizona, guiding us and supporting us. She'll be joining us on May 1st for an Arizona Heat Week press conference to kick off May 4th through the 8th. But it was established through that executive position for this getting done. And then we also looked at where was the best place for the position to be held within our state government. I myself, my background is public health and preparedness. That's been where I've lived for over a decade of public work. And that was found to be a good area to put it to be able to take advantage of that experience and subject matter expertise. But we have dotted lines to other state agencies that we work really closely with, such as the Governor's Office of Resiliency with Director Mahoney and others. And so, even though that position is held within public health, there's dotted lines across a lot of different state agencies to make sure that we have a coordinated and powerful effort moving forward on doing this work.
Thank you. And just one follow-up comment, and thank you for that. So just want to confirm, and I think it is going great. I think Governor Hobbs is doing a great job in establishing this, and I think you guys are doing a great job and have been a model that we're trying to see out here in New Mexico what we can do. But I guess I bring that up to say that after Governor Hobbs is gone and there's another governor that doesn't believe in this, right, this position could go away, right? That's the risk of not having it in statute.
That is a risk. That is definitely a risk, and one that I knew taking the position, but hope that we can make some impact and also be able to justify the position and the work that's getting done, whether you're blue, red, or purple. Because we support everybody from the socially vulnerable to our first responders that are out there, and also we need to realize, as we say, everybody is susceptible to heat. It doesn't matter about your age, your social economic status, your position, or your job. Everybody is susceptible. And so that needs to be a unifying message across the board to everyone. And hopefully we can make that happen within Arizona, but there is always a risk.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think making sure that things are in statute is so critically important, and having legislators that care about the heat issue and are working to solve it, I think is such a critical role. And I will say that the Arizona legislature, which is right, Eugene, it's currently the Republicans are in the majority, have
Yes.
passed like several heat related bills. And so that is shows that this is a bipartisan issue in the state, which I think is really important.
Definitely. There's been we've seen that happen. And then there's also, I mean, even just recently in this session, although, it can be contentious, right? I think, within government at times, but they have a Senate bill, I think it's 1805, which is proposed legislation to protect mobile home park residents from excessive utility charges and regulating landlords on the way that they can bill for utilities and putting caps on what they can charge individuals. And I think it was just yesterday, it passed with an overwhelming majority from the House and is moving on to the Senate. So you can see things like that show a unifying presence, within our government. And so we hope, that there's some realization on those things and those items and the policy that can be made and shows that some of the work that's getting done is very valuable for our citizens.
Amazing. I think I'll be able to have the chance to have one last question before we wrap us up. But one question that was in the chat was people are impressed by how you both describe this ability to do such large scale collaboration across sectors and with so many partners. And the question really was, how are you avoiding silos in the work? And what are the strategies that you're employing to make sure everyone is on the same page and working towards a shared goal? Maybe Fatima, if you wanted to start on that, or Eugene. Eugene even asked a lot of questions. So.
Yes, please, Fatima, go right ahead. I'm happy to chime in afterwards.
Yeah, for me personally, I think it's showing up to community events. We get a lot of invitations from a wide range of community groups. I think Tucson has one of the most number of nonprofits, like I'm sure in the state, but maybe like, I don't know, it's out there. And so with that comes a lot of opportunities and also challenges because people like to do their own things. I do want to say that it's two things. First is showing up. Like when people invite you, even like within city departments, when you show up to their events, even if you don't think, oh, I don't know if this is like related to my work, You learn a lot. Right now I'm working with a youth group, Native youth group that they were initially focused a lot on like gun violence, but they start to see like the interconnections, right? Everything is related. It comes back to like public health and then like climate and then heat. And so that's what I learned. Like when you show up and then you learn from what they do and they learn from what you do, like the dots just connect. And then that's one, just showing up. And the second, it's an opportunity because everyone's resources are being cut. We had to, after knowing what everybody does and showing up, um, you make those connections. Like, for example, we have like, I think we have two right now co-funded positions with two nonprofits in our community that where funding was cut and we were trying to accomplish kind of like the same thing. And so we are able to do the same work, accomplish the same things with less funding. And that only happened with us like building those relationships over time and like showing up and vice versa. And in many cases, it's like, it showing up, it's different when you're like a city employee. Sometimes it's like you have to just step up. Step back. Like just go and listen and see if there's like opportunities for collaboration. See if there's opportunities to just support the community groups. Which is also okay. Like we don't have to always be front and center. And I think that's important to recognize also like how do we show up and how do other groups want us to show up. So I would say that has helped me a lot working across different community groups and building bridges. And of course, it's not perfect. We have blind spots and we're always learning. But also just being open to like learning and unlearning things is helpful with building those partnerships. And also seeing partners in like the not the unthinkable, like just like unconventional partners, like the utilities, one example, they're also helping us build a resilient hub in one of our rec centers. And many community members are like, oh, why are you working with the utility? But others is like, yeah, you should be working with the utility. And so being open to work together when you have the same goal of protecting people, it's important. And also like stepping back if it's not a good match. So I think that constant learning and adaptive management, it's key for working with the community.
I think that's a great point. I think showing up is key. Just have a couple of perspectives on this. Showing up is key. I think from state government, people don't always expect you to show up at a summit or a meeting or other things. If myself or my team get an invitation, unless we have a conflict or there's something that we just can't attend, we try to be there and have a presence. And I think I agree with you, Fatima. Just being there, presence, and people understand that you value what they're saying or doing is huge for who we work with. I think the other thing is giving opportunities. So our state briefing calls and other meetings that we hold, our state summits that we hold every fall, it's an opportunity for people to participate and connect. And it's up to them whether they want to go ahead and participate, but the opportunities are there. And us giving those opportunities, I think, is really key as we move forward and to break down those silos. Because somebody may decide to just pick up and join a call and listen in one day, and then all of a sudden the next call they have something to say, and then the next call they connect with somebody and do something and or do an activity or make an initiative. I think that's really key too. And I think the other thing is you have to be able to say that every person's voice is just as valuable as the other, whether it's a farm worker in Yuma, whether it's a mayor, whether it's a state agency director. Everybody's voice is just as valuable as the other. And it's important to keep that perspective and be able to admit that you don't know everything, but you can help find out the truth or a resource to help those individuals and making sure that you value them as they go forward.
Amazing. Well, I know we need to hand it over, but I just always love our discussions. I learned so much from the both of you. I'm grateful that you're a part of this broader effort across the country to protect people against extreme heat. So I'll let you close this out.
Thank you so much, Grace, for facilitating our last panel. And Catherine, I see you have your hand up. We are running a little low on time now, so maybe if you can drop your question, Catherine, in the chat, and the panelists will be able to respond to it there.